Overview of screening. The goals of the screening phase are, once you've identified these women through recruitment, is that then you want to start screening them out and find out if they're eligible for study randomization. And the goal is to really just screen out ineligible women as quickly as possible to save you, to be more efficient with your time and money, and also to reduce their burden. You don't want to get women all the way through and find out at the very end she's not eligible. That will happen occasionally, but better to screen those out early in the process. And then it's just to basically explain the study requirements so she understands what she's signing up for, and that will help with retention. You don't want any surprises. You want her to really understand what's involved. And then obviously to obtain consent along the way for each phase that you're, each phase of screening and then the intervention itself. So you saw this diagram before. This is in the protocol. And again, this just kind of gives the flow. You start out with the pre-screen, then you're going to do the mailed, and there's 2 screening visits, and then they get randomized. And right now we're going to talk just down through the screening visits, and then we'll talk about the follow-up visits after that. So also in your handouts then is this table. It's from the protocol, table 1. And I tried to kind of match the numbers up with, so the numbers on the slide kind of match up with the first 5 numbers on the table. So the first thing is to do a pre-screen where you do a phone screen where you review basic eligibility questions, then you're going to mail the materials, then you're going to have the visit, and then in between screening visit 1 and 2, there's going to be a clinician review, and they're going to review the safety labs, and we'll talk about that. And then there's the randomization visit. So I've listed the inclusion criteria here. We don't have to go through them, in great detail, but these are from the protocol. This just lists these are the criteria that women need to meet in order to be eligible for the study. So they need to be in the right age range. They have to be menopausal. There's an algorithm for determining whether they're menopausal, and I won't go into that. But for part of the women who, for example, have had a hysterectomy, they will need to have their FSH and estradiol levels measured. So later on, we'll explain how you find out who those women are and make sure that you get the labs on those women to figure out if they're eligible based on their menopausal status. They also have to have the hot flashes, an average number of hot flashes to be eligible. The hot flashes have to be bothersome or severe. They need to be in general good health, and of course they need to have a signed informed consent. Now all of these inclusion and exclusion criteria are basically get collected through, in different ways. Some of them are on the Form 101, which is the first eligibility. It's kind of a pre-visit questionnaire they're going to fill out, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Some of the things are on the hot flash diary, some of them are in the safety labs, but all this has been designed to, by the time you collect all this information, by the time they're randomized, you've kind of, you've had a measure basically of all the inclusion and exclusion criteria to ensure that the woman is eligible for the study. So in terms of the exclusion criteria, if she's been using hormone therapy, or she's currently using hormone therapy or has used it in the last 2 months, she's not eligible. If she's using any other therapy that's taken specifically for hot flashes, in the past month, she's not eligible. If she has a current severe or unstable medical illness, or uncontrolled hypertension. And again, these are kind of broad categories, but between the questionnaires and the database, all of these things are pretty specifically defined. So it's not up to you to figure out whether she has a severe or unstable medical illness. That's defined, and that's actually part of the clinician review. But all these things are built into the process to help screen her. Also, she has a history of certain diseases. She has drug or alcohol abuse, suicide attempt, major depressive episode, or a lifetime diagnosis of psychosis. If she's pregnant, intending pregnancy or breastfeeding, she's not eligible. And if she's currently participating in another drug or intervention study, or for whatever reason is unable to complete the study procedures, let's say she lives just too far out of town, or she's, it turns out she's going to be out of the country for a month right in the middle of the study or whatever, that's not going to work. Now I should say for some of these, especially like the hormone treatment, the out of the country for a month or whatever, those women aren't necessarily excluded permanently. If it turns out that the woman is willing to give up her black cohosh or whatever she's taken for her hormone treatment, Or if she says, well, I'm going out of town next month, but I'll be back then, and you still have sufficient time left in your recruitment time frame, you can set those women aside and recontact them in a month and start the process over at that point and see if she might be interested then. So you kind of collect that information at the beginning. And so, like I said, some of these things are going to rule out a woman permanently, but some of them may just be temporary, and you're certainly welcome to track those women. It depends on how your recruitment efforts are going. If you find it's easy to find women and easy to recruit women, you don't have to worry about this so much, but if you're really having a hard time getting those numbers, you're going to want to keep track of these women who may be eligible at a later point and put them in a file and recontact them in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it is, whatever applies. And then in addition, all the ones I've talked about so far are kind of trial specific, and those are going to be inclusion and exclusion that apply to all the trials. There's also then that are going to be some that are specific just to the study that you're recruiting for. And so, for example, the first one being Freeman's study, these are things that are specific to her protocol, which there are certain medications that a woman cannot be using. She can't have a history of certain diseases, mostly because of safety issues with the SSRI that she'll be taking. And then there are blood test results that have to be within a certain range for it to be safe. So most of these are actually safety issues that before you prescribe this medication for women, you want to know that it's going to be safe for her.
Julie, what's the time frame in the third line, the gabapentin and sanctions, or what's the time frame on that?
I don't remember, I think it's current.
It's current?
Yeah, I think it's current.
I don't think there's,
You might want to add that, because it's unclear.
Yeah.
And if she discontinues it 2 weeks ago, you know.
It asks for current, so some of these things will be collected and they might need a little bit of follow-up if she's ineligible, if she's current, but she's willing to stop taking it. That's a question we'll have to classify the clinicians, because I'm not sure some of these, how long they take to get out of her system. So it's a good question, we'll have to clarify that. But
Right.
the way it's answered the question there is current. And then this is just I thought I'd toss this out. You have to be really careful during the screening intervention that you can't let women know about the specific criteria needed for eligibility, specifically, particularly hot flashes. If you're talking to someone and she's got, 26 and she needs 28, you can't just you're so close. Are you sure you didn't have a few more hot flashes you don't remember? Whatever. I mean, you really she should not know. She shouldn't know she's shooting for 4 hot flashes a day or whatever. I mean, that, that's all calculated, in the database. You just enter the data. It's an average over time, but it's not information for her to know. She just records the number she's having in the database, determines whether she's eligible or not. Also, that you can't tell them, that they have to be bothersome or severe or whatever. I mean, we really want this to be truly how she's feeling. This is the number she's having, and they're bothering her or not. If they're not, then she's not eligible. And then later on, I'm not actually sure how we're dealing with the increasing or not increasing medication. But I mean, we certainly wouldn't say, well, you didn't have a 50% reduction in hot flashes or whatever. But we will say, there's probably going to be some line, we're going to increase your dose. We'll have to have some explanation, but we're not going to actually say it's because your hot flashes did not decrease by a certain amount. So you just don't share those kind of specifics with women.